I want to spend a minute talking about reading strategies. And one of the most important things about reading well is just paying attention to what you read, taking your time. I find that it helps to hold a pen or a pencil in my hand when I'm reading, or if I'm reading online, I might choose the highlighter tool up here from my toolbar. Um, Make that a little bigger. I can choose the highlighter tool, and then when I get to something that's important, I can select it. So first of all, we'll start with the headline. The title. The headlines are covering up police violence by Sarah Jackson, and we see that this was written very recently. So already we know that she's writing probably about the current Black Lives Matter movement that's happening, and the way in which that's being reported. And it's helpful to read the title and think about that because we already have a sense of what she's going to be writing about before we even jump into the rest of her text. Let's read this first paragraph. In light of the recent police killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, journalists are faced once again with the task of making sense of Black protest for the American public. It bears asking what media professionals have learned, not just in the 6 years since the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, spurred national outrage, but also in the decades and centuries of Black American resistance. So I think as you go, it's important to pause and think, do I understand this paragraph? Do I know who these people are? Now, I've been paying attention to the news, so I recognize all of these names. If you don't recognize any of them, this would be a good point to stop and Google them. Find out what is Sarah Jackson referencing. And she's talking about journalists having a task of making sense of Black protest for the American public. So already we can see that the main idea here is how do you write about protest? So I would continue to scroll through this and try to outline or highlight what I think is the main idea in each paragraph. Let's do paragraph 2. How the news covers activism matters profoundly to a democracy. Okay, that's an important point. Because the media can influence public support or rejection of policies that might solve social ills such as racism and police brutality. Okay, so I'm actually going to highlight the rest of that. Influence public support or rejection of policies. Following the dozens of uprisings that swept U.S. cities after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968, Lyndon B. Johnson's National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders, commonly known as the Kerner Commission, reported on the cause and possible future prevention of such unrest. The commission asserted that in addition to generational poverty, housing and employment discrimination, and over-policing, the media was partially responsible for the neglect felt by Black communities. Interesting. The commission wrote, along with the country as a whole, the press has too long basked in a white world. Oh, interesting. So she's talking about how the press might be influenced, have some sort of racial bias, right, as they're presenting a story. Looking out of it, if at all, with white men's eyes and a white perspective. That is no longer good enough. That's right. The painful process of readjustment that is required of the American news media must begin now. Okay, that seems like an incredibly important point. I think I'm actually going to highlight that in a different color just so I can keep track of my ideas a little bit. They must insist on the highest standards of accuracy, not only reporting single events with care and skepticism, but placing each event into a meaningful perspective. Okay, so this is what she thinks journalists should do. Oops, shoot, I want to make that yellow. Yeah. Okay, they must report the travail of our cities with compassion and in depth. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, but I want you to continue reading through here and highlighting however you feel. You could underline if you're more comfortable with printing it out and writing on it with pen or pencil. That would be great too. The key is that you're really writing on this and you're interacting with it as you go and trying to note what is most important because this will be helpful to you later.